Hello, I'm Jason Skill. This is Painting with Skill Lesson 13. In Lesson 13 we look at stock skies. Stock skies, why do I use that term? Well, years ago there used to be old black and white movies and there would be stock footage in it. So if it was a war movie you'd see the same shot of guns recoiling. If it was a Cowboys and Indians movie you would see the same guy fall off the horse. So they would just put the same shots into pictures, into the movies, and this is called stock footage. So when you needed an image of somebody falling off a horse, you get out of the library a guy falling off a horse. In a sense, when you're painting with watercolour, I do the same. I get out of my mental library a format of painting a sky and I use my stock sky when I need it. And you might have stock trees and stock rocks and the same kind of idea. So you'll basically nail into your mind by repetition and exploring formats a certain number of ways of doing things that you can knit together and create imagery that, for those that don't know how you're doing it, would imagine that it's coming out of your imagination, which it sort of is, but basically it's just pulled off the shelf and then you use from your mind. So, my basic stock sky, which I've used for donkey's years teaching, looks like this. Here's your basic box. What I found was that if your sky came in, so imagine you have a cloud here, and covered the top of the image, then it looked like you were cutting off the edge of the image and it was more convincing rather than the cloud being just alone in the picture. Then what I thought was that the air is moving this way, the wind is moving this way, or hey, you could imagine it's moving the other way, but for the sake of simplicity we'll go this way. And then basically what I'm doing is now bringing in a cloud shape from here. So think of these almost like pieces of card that are coming in, right? And then I'll do another one. So the simple idea here is that this one finishes, say, there, and then that one is here, and then that one is behind it. So you get the image of recession going by that being behind that being behind that. So it feels like it's moving forward in layers. You could also play with the idea of adding some little extra ones as if it's floating ahead of it. That works if you're trying to get the feel that the sky is moving that way. So if it's moving in over, maybe you don't want the little ones at the end. If it's moving out, maybe you do want some little trailing ones. So let us imagine, just to recap on that and get you to think this through, that this is a stage. And here's the curtains, and there's the back of the stage. What you're doing is you're moving in a cloud, and then you're moving in a piece of a cloud stage prop, and then we're moving in another one. So think of this as just sort of sideways sliding in to your image. Now if I do that with some paint, here I've got some French ultramarine, there's a little bit of the the burnt umber left over from the last demonstration is picked up on my brush, so that's why it's gone a little bit darker. And I'm just going to repeat that idea with paint. So let's draw the box, and I'm going to go big movements. Now when I made those little arc movements in the previous exercise with the dry brush, try doing that so that you're making arcing down movements. I'll explain a little bit more why I would do that in a moment. And then this, so I could make these maybe slightly arced up to the top and arced down for the bottom. And then this, I'm making my brush slightly thinner, so instead of holding it flat down, I'm turning it slightly to the side so it's a thinner mark, and I might just pull that through. Now let's just do the most basic of landscape shapes. So I'm going across, I can see the top of my landscape doing that. I'm holding it flat, I might go to the point end, like so, and then let's have a little bit of that dry brush that we were looking at in the previous video, loading it, making it a little bit drier, pulling the excess off, maybe testing it down the side of the board, and then do like so, which then makes that kind of sparkly water look. Your sky looks strong in that it appears to be perhaps nearer here with the darker paint and the larger shape, and then smaller and smaller. It appears to go away from you, which is the basic idea of this format. Now, what you find people do is that they feel that they have to be creative when they're painting, that they have to every time come up with something new and exciting when they're putting the paint on. Or they hope that the paint will do something absolutely magical, particularly when they start painting with wet in wet. They put water on, it flows about, and the magic's going to happen, and it's going to all turn out terrific, we hope, and then you put the paint on and some sky will appear. It usually does not, unless you have some kind of composition or format in mind that you then work into it. So yes, you could have paint moving around and do an exciting thing, but without a structure, it normally falls to bits. So with my students, I get them to use this format usually, and we could look at some others, and then they will practice and practice and practice doing that in different applications, different ways, until that is locked into their head, and when they come to doing the wet in wet, it gets easier. So in the next video, we'll be looking at adapting that very basic stock sky idea so that you can create your own stock skies with a wider range of brushes.